Hey, welcome to That Chronicles, where we as veterans get together and we talk about matters that we believe are of interest to our active duty personnel and veteran in our American military. Look, we want to thank our producers, 216 The Net, for sponsoring this or at least engineering this broadcast online and so forth. And so anyway, I'm Rick Prescott.
I'm Jason Hertha.
And I'm Mike Ruffler.
And Jason?
Yep. Be sure to check us out on our previous podcasts on YouTube. Hit the bell notification, hit subscribe for future videos. Also hit the like button because it also helps out with the algorithm. Also check us out on Apple, Twitch, Spotify, and Twitter. And again, I'd like to thank our producers, 216 The Net.
Hey, That Chronicles is thrilled to introduce our special guest, retired United States Army Major Lorenzo Fiorentino.
You said it perfectly earlier.
I did, didn't I? I said it right now perfectly a while ago. But anyway, that's me. President of the Chicago Veterans Museum, located in River Road, Illinois. Also, Richard WOJEWNIK, former Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. And we're here to talk about that museum and also the Chicago
Zone Young Marines.
Chicago Zone Young Marines.
Chicago Zone.
So, but anyway, hey, welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're honored to have you here, and thanks for being here for us.
Jason, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Have this thing tell you about your military service. Start with.
Yeah.
Sure. You want to go first?
It's up to you, Major.
Go ahead.
So yeah, Richard WOJEWNIK. I was in from 79 to 91. My last 6 years was with a local Marine Reserve unit here, 224. My active duty time I had to extend, as Rick was. I was an MSG, so I had to extend on that time. So 79, I went into the Marine Corps, went to ITS as an 0311. I was back then, they had a thing called the bonus baby. So if you signed up for 4 years infantry, you got $1,500. It was a big deal back then. I was 18. Went to ITS, but out of everybody in the class, everybody was getting barracks duty on Subic Bay, Rota, Spain, Yokosuka, Japan. I'm the only guy that got 1st Tank Battalion. I thought, 1st Tank Battalion? I'm 0311. And I asked the instructor what that was, and they said, you're going to walk behind the tank and tell the guy where to shoot. Well, that's not what it was. So they made a mistake, and they sent me to tow company with other 0351s from my ITS class. So I became a tow man. I'll make it short. So then after 1 year, I went to MSG school in Quantico, Virginia, and became a MSG, went to Nicosia, Cyprus, Hong Kong, got back, went back to the fleet, the 3rd Tank Battalion Tow Company, and I got out. Because it's different. When you're with, and Rick will testify this, when you're on MSG program, you're working with different kinds of Marines. You come back to the fleet, it's a different world. So I got out, and then after 2 years, almost 2 years, because I had extension, I went into the reserves, and that's where I was with Weapons Company 224. And we went to Norway, we went to Desert Storm. They sent me to PMI school as an additional ATD. Anyways, so I had a good career, I believe. I had fun.
If I can interject there, you mentioned that you were at 1st Tank Battalion.
That's right.
That was my first duty station, was 1st Tank Battalion
Right?
in 1974.
Oh.
And in about 76, 77, somewhere thereabouts, the tanks came out with tow missiles. They had, so they didn't know how to operate those Jeeps with those heavy, that's what it was, the old
M151 Jeeps.
M151 Jeep, and they had the big unit on the back.
Yeah.
Well, you could roll those very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that time, I was an instructor at Motor Vehicle Operator School at Camp Horno and Camp Pendleton.
Mm-hmm.
And so they seconded us because we had the PRC 125 large Jeep radios.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took a bunch of them over there, and we actually taught the tankers how to operate those Jeeps, going up the hills, back up the hills, things like that.
Well, I don't think, Rick, there were tankers. There were 0351s trained in tows.
Right.
There were a tow company who was with the 1st Tank Battalion, but they weren't tankers. They're 0351.
No, we went to Tank Battalion. That's where we did it. In the back hills, right there in the back of Los Flores.
Right. But that Jeep was cool. When I don't know, now it's in a Humvee and everything else, but back then, the M151 having that tow pedal still back there, it truly was like Rat Patrol. So when I was on a ship for 6 months, we went to Diego Garcia, and all these sailors out there, they saw us and they were yelling out, Rat Patrol, Rat Patrol, and it truly was. It was fun. You had the assistant gunner was the driver, the gunner was in the back.
Exactly.
And you had to hang on for dear life when you hit all the ruts and everything else. It was actually a great job. It was a good, And it's hard to believe it was like an infantry job because you really didn't have to carry that. And it took 5 people, by the way, to carry a tow weapon system. And we didn't have 5 people, but that was a great job. And I don't want to take all your time talking about tows, but I love tows.
But you know what? You were at the 1st Tank Battalion stationed at Los Flores.
Yeah.
I was there,
Yeah,
and I think that's another connection.
small
you and
world
I have.
again. Very small world.
That's fantastic.
It really is.
You're at Diego Garcia.
That's right. When I was on the 31st mile, we went on that float, we went to the Persian Gulf, and they actually qualified me the first time to be in the VFW. Went during Operation Eagle Claw. We didn't even know about it. And so they picked us up in Okinawa, our tow section. It was only a tow section. And we went all the way from Philippines. On the way going there, we had operations in the Philippines, training exercises, Thailand, Singapore, no, just Liberty Port. Then we were out at sea for 54 days, went to Persian Gulf. We didn't know anything about Operation Eagle Claw. But, we were training the entire time. And then one day the skipper comes on the ship, the skipper of the ship comes on board. And it's like a gut punch when he said that what happened and the Americans were killed, but they got out. And then a few days later, they said that that's the job. That's why we were with the 7th Fleet, the USS Mobile, the Okinawa, all these Alamo, all these ships were there in the Persian Gulf as a reactionary force. Because if they did get to the embassy in that stadium and they got stuck, that's what the 31st MAO, back then it was called MAO, Marine Amphibious Unit. That's what we were all about, was to get in there and try to get them out if that happened. But of course, they never got that far. At the Desert One, that's where they had the problem.
What you served there to the MSG? Where did you serve?
Nicosia, Cyprus, and Hong Kong. I was actually married in Hong Kong. Just had my 40th wedding anniversary in July.
Hopefully happy.
Very happy.
All right.
My wife and I went back in 2019. And if you're a Marine and you want to visit, and I'm going to tell you this, you could do this. So all you have to do is call up the consulate in Hong Kong. I think any embassy or consulate, if you call up and ask to talk to the detachment commander, you hook up with him and say, I'm a Marine. Now, maybe because I was an MSG, it was a little bit easier. But yeah, so we hooked up with him when we got to Hong Kong. He took us out for lunch, brought me into the consulate, which is completely changed from when I was there in 82, 83. Completely changed. But it was good to, always good to hook up with Marines, right? So it was fun.
Absolutely.
What type of training did you do when you were in the Philippines?
So from Okinawa, we got to the Philippines, we had actually a major exercise. So tows, now it's funny, it's a jungle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything we did was traveling on roads. We would our training was you have 5,000 meters maximum range on a tow. It's actually plus, but that's confidential, but it's 5,000 meters.
That's they're obsolete now anyway.
Yeah, well, I think they're on tow 2 right now, tow 2, which is but anyways, it's so the thing in the Philippines for us is tow gunners. Everything was on the road or a mountaintop with an open view, viewing roads. And I've been watching a lot of these YouTube videos of guys in Syria we gave a lot of tows to the freedom fighters. They did the same thing. They're up in the mountaintops and they're sitting up there waiting for, armored vehicles or any kind of vehicle, even bunkers across a mountainside to hit that with a tow. And, tow is a very, very accurate weapon, but that's what we did in the Philippines. Travel the roads, set up our bivouac area,
do any like hand-to-hand stuff or anything like that? Or
so no, but I know they do that now today with the Filipino Marines.
Right.
You did that, Jason?
I did not train with the Filipino Marines personally, but when I got out of the Marine Corps, I started to get more into the martial arts and hand-to-hand stuff, and discovered the Filipino martial arts alongside with Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's stuff, so Dan and Asanto and all that stuff, and very, very devastating stuff of what they teach nowadays with the knife fighting and all that stuff. And of course, you could be like the best knife fighter in the world, you're going to get cut, but the way that they manipulate that thing, if you can get it off, is very, very nasty on what they teach the troops and all that. So it's one of my. I
studied
one of my favorite.
Makali from Master Nanoy Galano for a while, and I'm pretty proficient with the Eskrima Kali. That's what they call that art. And there's another one too. That's
they have so many different subsections of all that stuff. It's pretty similar stuff, but it's to me it's one of the most brutal type of systems that I've seen out of any of them, and they get rid of a lot of the flowery, fluffy stuff in there because that really doesn't win street fights and all that. So
interesting.
Well, how about yourself?
So I enlisted in '88 as an infantryman and did some time in the Army. Did about 21 years, and throughout
just a little bit.
Yeah. So and throughout my time, had the opportunity to get commissioned. In '92, I was commissioned, and I retired as an '04 military policeman with the most awesomest assignment anybody could ever have. I was the provost marshal for a 3-star command, and retired because according to the wife, it was time. So, but
So you're a Mustang as well.
I am. Yes, I am. It's throughout my career, I worked for great NCOs, worked for great officers too. Myself and the Sheik were having a conversation earlier on about one of the NCOs when I was enlisted in his company that was assigned to me. I think I was more assigned to him, and he was probably the biggest reason why I knew that I had done it the right way by enlisting first and eventually becoming an officer. And it's my understanding that NCO also became an officer.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
I know
definitely the way to go.
in enlisted world, a Mustang officer is probably the best.
Yeah,
They,
and I believe that. I've always believed that it's probably the best way for an officer. Probably the best lessons for an officer are to be enlisted first. That way you get to know what your troops and your men and women go through when you're given commands or orders that may not be exactly the brightest ones that you could possibly give. And also you can also gauge how the pulse of your unit better is by knowing having been to where they're at now. So
one of the things that I learned in the Corps, just listening to officers, just being an NCO, take care of your Marines, take care of your people. And as a Mustang, I think that becomes a natural element because you become kind of, lack of better terms, kind of prejudicial in a sense, and because you were one of those, you take care of them automatically. And you just mentioned something that perhaps a lot of officers are, I won't say incapable of. They usually, by the time you make captain, you usually get it down pretty well pat. But before that is gauging your personnel, is understanding that dynamic, and that's awesome. Just knowing you're a Mustang, hey, hats off to you, sir.
Thank you. And I think a major key part of that too was that when things didn't make sense, you knew it, and you could gauge it. I was always of the belief that you take care of your people, don't worry about taking care of yourself, and they're going to take care of you. And throughout my enlisted time, I realized that was the way to treat others in general. And when I became an officer, it was I never worried about myself, and I think that's probably why my career was as I believe my career was pretty outstanding. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I think that's why, because I took care of my people and they took care of me.
What are you guys doing now? I mean, you know what? Usually when military personnel get out, they continue that service in the community somehow. So what are you guys doing now?
Well, one of the things we do is we have a museum that we set up a few years back, and it's the Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum. I believe you have the website and the Facebook page. But also, in 2018, we kicked around the idea, and our American Legion and VFW post gave birth to this museum. I use that term because it literally did. In 2018, we pitched the idea, and we were shot down by everybody. All right, we're like, well, what are we going to do with that? And okay. Well, in 2019, we became the leadership of both the VFW and the Legion, along with Sean Schroeder, who's also Marine. And so,
where's this located?
River Grove.
Out in River Grove, Illinois.
Yeah, the museum itself is located at 8664 Grand Avenue, and that's the Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum. So in 2019, we pitched the idea again, and lo and behold, we were the new leadership, so we were going to have a museum. So we moved forward, and in 2020, we dedicated. It was in the midst of the pandemic, and everybody thought we were crazy, but somebody upstairs was looking out for us, and we had an incredible 70-degree day on November 10th of 2020. So we were able to move the entire ceremony outside. We had the Army band playing.
25-piece Army band.
Yeah, we had the Army band.
We did everything.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, sorry to cut you off, Major, but 25-piece Army band. It was outside. It's on our YouTube channel, Chicagoland Veterans Command Post. You can see the entire ceremony on that page. But Lorenzo set that up as what his job was in the Army. He's professional. He knows how to get this stuff put together, and we follow his orders. He actually our American Legion commander, and so he was actually just led. Somebody else took over now as a 9th District American Legion commander, but he was a 9th District Legion commander also. Anyway, so sorry.
So
Fantastic.
thank you, Woj. One of the things that I always address with my core group of vets is there's no such thing as I. Everything we do is we, and I think we got a great team. We got a great team of vets. We have a couple of our civilian assistants that are actually sons of the VFW or
Sons of the American Legion.
Sons of the American Legion, and we just have a great team, and everything we do it well. This year we got our 3rd annual military showcase and reenactment, where we showcase and highlight from the French and Indian War all the way to modern wars, and we have period reenactors, period music. We're going to bring
clothing,
period
all of that.
clothing this year.
Everything.
Yeah, this
We're very
year.
lucky. We got tier 1 reenactors. We have somebody on board that is a reenactor himself, so he has connection with these guys. We got tier 1 reenactors, and I didn't know that there was different levels of reenactors. Some guys just like to go and have fun, but they'll put on gym shoes, with a Civil War outfit. No, these guys got the entire. They got the socks that are like legit, like really how they made the socks.
Wow.
There's places, and believe it or not, would you know that in Ukraine, that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. They have companies in Ukraine. And so last year when we spoke to these guys, they said, that's where we bought it, from Ukraine. There's these companies in Ukraine that sells reenactment stuff.
And we have
Incredible.
we have several. When Wojo talks about top tier, many of our reenactors have been in documentaries and movies. One of our groups, the 370th, and the what was their Civil War designation? Luther's unit. Can't think of the Civil War designation right now. I apologize, but they were literally in the movie Glory. They were part of
all African American.
Yep, they were an all African American unit. They were in the movie Glory. They're in that final scene also when the things don't work out so well. But and we've have several others that have been in various World War I, World War II, Civil War movies, so and documentaries. So it really is a great time. We've been told by several of the organizations that have come out. They've been to many reenactments or showcases, and they can't believe that. And in this case, it's only our 3rd one. At our 2nd one, we were told they couldn't believe it was only our 2nd one that we put together. So we love doing it. We love what we do, and I think that's why our results are usually pretty good at the end of the day.
We had helicopter land in the first one.
Yeah. We have period cannons going off, and this year we're going to have the Rockford Peaches that are going to play a vintage baseball game. They're World War II reenactors that play baseball that was played during World War II when the men were all off fighting.
During like the League of Their Own.
Yeah,
They're exactly the League of Their Own. Yes.
They're all women.
Wow.
And we're putting together, since we're in Berkeley, we're working on putting together the Berkeley Roses. So it'll be the Rockford Peaches and the Berkeley Roses
Oh
playing
my
on,
goodness.
playing on Sunday from 1 to 3, and it should just be an amazing time. I am looking forward.
Okay,
to it.
how did you guys connect with all these guys? How did you do that?
A lot of phone calling, emailing, asking other reenactors, hey, you know anybody else that might be interested? Even some that were tied up the weekend for another event would say, we can't do it, but contact this guy and let them know that we gave you their information. So a lot of it was literally just doing the old-fashioned looking up on the internet, reenactment units in the Chicago area. Not too many. All right. So I mean, we've got units that are coming from Indiana. We've got units that are coming from Western, Southern Illinois, Iowa. Yeah. So
Now, when they do that, do they do it on their own dime or?
So there are honorariums that we pay for certain ones, and we're okay with that. I think that's important to have the honorariums, because like our cannon crews, it's not cheap to ship those cannons from point A to point B.
Exactly. Right.
And thank goodness some of that honorarium goes to inspecting the cannons, make sure that they're not going to malfunction in a fatal way. So a lot of that honorarium goes into it. Our cavalry units, hopefully we'll have a couple of cavalry units this year. Same thing. Those horses must eat. But most of our reenactors, although they are tier A, they have regular day jobs. So they don't necessarily depend on receiving an honorarium to pay their bills. The honorarium is more to just help support that lifestyle per se. So we have quite a few costs for the event, but luckily we're always out there seeking donors, and we're always out there seeking. We do a really neat little ad book where we call it Supporters of Veteran Ad Book. So people can look through it and everything. So we get creative as far as raising the funding, because it's a free event for admission. Admission is free, but then we'll have food trucks there. So I mean, if you want to stay the whole day, well, we can have lunch or dinner there also. It's usually, it'll be 10 to 3. We'll have our scouts there. We try and include all of our partners, and it's a great opportunity for the scouts to do their camp out. Our young Marines that we're slowly bringing under our tutelage they'll be there. They'll be there doing their camp out and having some fundraisers. So it's just a wrap around of just about. We're going to have tank. What was that? Track tank.
Track tank.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
It's a wheelchair. It's a tank.
Oh,
It's a motorized wheelchair with
is it a
tread.
Mongo or something?
It looks like the same vehicle that was in Lost in Space from the
Yeah.
60s.
I know
And literally, so they'll be there again this year. So we have 3 of our veterans trained on operating that. And that thing's just totally cool. So they'll be there. And then we'll also have a lot of representatives from our local VA there. We'll have representatives from our local veteran service office organizations there. Once again, part of what we do is we reach out to our veterans. That's our motto is a living memorial to veterans. Okay. Our museum, you can see when veterans come in there, and family members, and they're kind of in amazement, because
you know what's cool about this? I don't mean to cut you off, but you're networking, you're connecting, you're reaching out and touching so many different organizations, and you don't care who they are. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, everybody in the community is getting involved in this project because you're reaching out and touching them. That's very impressive. That's a hard thing to do, and that's a full-time job in itself.
I think in a major, probably going more on this, but the young people from the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, they come in and with the veterans, and all the veterans, most of the guys are fathers. We even have women veterans who are mothers. There's we have a couple ladies in there too, and so when the scouts come in to help us with things, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, they really get to see what, especially through the museum, what the veterans all about, what a person has to go through when they're called up for service time and in a wartime. But you don't have to be in a war to have your stuff in the museum, just serving. But the kids get to really learn a lot, because I think nowadays you see a lot of negativity out there. And when they come in, they go into the museum and we take them on a tour, but then you can stay as long as you like. They really they learn something.
A lot of these groups too is that they're looking for projects they can do for themselves. Like we were on a streak for a while where Eagle Scouts, the kids need to find a project. So we had somebody that year, like 20 years, if not quite 20 years, pretty close to 20 years. We had our first Purple Heart monument put on the Woodstock Square. And he says, I like to see one in every town and every county and all this other stuff. So he had a booklet done up, and we would give copies out to the Eagle Scouts. So I think McHenry County has 4, let's see. You got
3 that I know of.
4.
Wow.
There's 4.
Marengo, Spring Grove, 2 in Woodstock. And the thing is, out of those 4, 2 of them were done by Eagle Scouts. Because at the time it was like $6,000 put everything together.
Yeah.
But part of the Eagle Scout thing is that they have to identify a project, what it's going to go for. Then they have to do the fundraising, the planning, and then execute with the working party to make it done.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they come out and see your museum, these Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever, they earn their badges. Your organization kind of has an opportunity where they can help you with your mission. At the same time, they're earning something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key, is to just, kids nowadays, they have a lot of other stuff going on, so anytime we can let them see a little bit of, Americanism, a little bit of, what others have done, I think that's huge. I think that's key. And we're really excited. Obviously, we've been working with the Scouts. We've been working with the Girl Scouts, but we're really excited about coming up here next year, us taking a larger lead in in our young Marines that we have, because they're a great group. They're a great group. They're a great organization.
We have a couple others. We have one out of Elgin, Fox Valley, and you got one over there at the Great Lakes.
Right. Well, so I know a little bit about the Great Lakes one. I was told that it's they only have I think 11 or 12 young Marines there. And I understand that the reason why is, I was told, is that it's hard for the parents to get on base, because they meet on base and they have to have a clearance to get on base. That's why there's not many members. But as Lorenzo was mentioning, October next year, we take over the Young Marines. I'll be the new CO. Lorenzo will be the financial officer. Retired Master Gunnery Sergeant Ed Castaneda will be my XO, but we're all equal. We have to have titles, because look at this this guy's leadership to our post in the museum. It's just we were just so darn lucky. And
the big thing is, in leadership roles, we all have to train the next generation.
Right.
I'm finally, I think, get away from the paymaster from our group next month, but it's like getting the next generation, because what I have in my head is not classified.
Right.
It's to share so everybody else can be.
Right.
No greater compliment than an organization surviving you leaving. If the organization dies when you leave, you did nothing.
Well, years ago, and we'll pick on the Legion, when I was on active duty, we had like 3 or 4 Memorial Day events. So the Master Sergeant and myself, we went to a cemetery over there at Irving and Central, that cemetery. So we were in there and we were talking to American Legion guy, and getting there a bunch of World War II guys, not very many, but there was a handful there, and we were there to basically raise the flag at the pole and stuff. But one of the things I learned before we started our Marine Corps League out here is that I asked him, I said, well, how long have you been commander? Well, you've been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
So when I wrote had helped with the bylaws, when we got the others, you're in charge for 2 years and then give it up, because you don't get new blood that way.
Right. I just wanted to say about the Young Marines is that they're coming over. We're taking over in October. Lenny Jakubiak is the current commander. He'll still be there with Tony. They just are not going to do the heavy lifting. They're still going to be involved with us too. So as I know, the kids are used to them, the parents are used to them, and we're just taking over the organization.
Well, it's new blood creates
New ideas.
Yep. And I think I know what's going on with Great Lakes. It's not really a big deal get on base because we're MACG 48 at, but when you're stuck with the same crew and you don't get because they had drama at one point within their leadership, but and I think that's been taken care of over the last 8 years. But the thing is, if you don't have new people coming in all the time, you don't get new ideas, because you guys can brainstorm all day long and you come up with great ideas.
It's always the same ideas.
Well,
it can be.
It can be.
Yeah.
Well, a few things that we're gonna do is, right now what we're planning on doing is the Young Marines, the family, especially the parents, will know for a year what the drill dates are. Right now they don't know that. They have to, because Lenny doesn't know what days he's available. He only has himself and Tony. Those are 2 people. That's it. Well, we've already got like 5 or 6 guys are in vetting process right now. So we'll have a lot more guys, and we'll able to cover every time we have those drill dates. That'll be there for the parents on the list. How much, up until a year in advance, how much they will, they know what the drills will be. Also, we're going to go into rifle drills, which the kids were excited. So I mentioned that in February to them. Lorenzo and a couple of the other of our members were Steinman's graduates. They were rifle champion drill guys. So they're going to do the drills. And that's no problem with national. That's going to be part of the program. And so they're going to teach them rifle drill, which the kids were so excited when I brought that up to them. They couldn't get enough of that. They want to talk more about it, but yeah. So we're going to do rifle drills. We're going to add that in.
Bill's real good up in National. He worked at 24th Marine Regiment when I was with 224. So when we met, because with Coordinating Council twice a year, we go out to Chronicles. So Bill's always at those meetings, and he's all about anything that's going to turn around, shine the kids and move forward.
And I think the kids will really take to doing those kinds of various different kinds of events, because we'll go to different locations and we'll do different exhibits like that. I mean, they have a great color guard, you know, and they do very well doing that. But it's always nice to have other teams within your organization, you know, and then hopefully that'll help them recruit their buddies to come join.
Well, and you got 3 nearby. Plus, I think it's either Kenosha or Racine. They got a Young Marines there, so you got really four groups of kids that if you all do
we could rotate.
Well, yeah, you know, where you kind of bounce to somebody else's backyard to see what's going on. Because like with us, Rick and I and Jason and stuff, sometimes we'll go to other Marine Corps League groups to see what's going on with them. And I think tell them plagiarism's legal.
That's right.
If you got a good idea, I'm stealing. If I got a good idea, by all means, you
why recreate the wheel if you don't have to?
Right.
Oh God.
You know, one thing I wanted to mention before I forget, it has to go back to museum, because I'm looking at Jason. He's a younger man here. And so that's one thing the museum did, was brought in a lot of young guys into our VFW American Legion, because a lot of people sit back when you mention American Legion, they look at it's old guys, and that museum has brought in so many young people because it's, you know, they get to bring their items in and it tells a story. We have events going on that's always connected with the museum, and those young guys like to be part of that museum. So we're very lucky that several of our members work at the VA. One of them is actually in the mental health department, one of the counselors there. He's one of our members.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so just who we're bringing in with this museum. It's very, and the Young Marines have been there. They had a whole field day. We set up a day where Lorenzo did the tours. We broke the kids down in groups. Lorenzo did the tour. We had another, one of our members, Ray Stripling, is a Civil War reenactor with the outfit. He did all his camping. He set up on this little stage we have, his pup tent and everything laid out. And then Gary Linden is our curator. Now, Gary Linden, an interesting man, 30 years of River Forest policeman, retired. He's not a veteran, so he's in our Sons of the Legion organization, Sons of the American Legion, but he's also the curator for the museum. And he set up patches, explained the different patches. He had so many patches that he had patches he would give to the kids. Give all the, you know, he actually let them,
cool.
So, but he would explain all the photographs and patches, and he had some little items.
Set up, I believe it was a World War II exhibit.
Yeah, and he explained it to them. So we broke them down in 3 groups, and the kids loved it. That's why when they know they're coming to River Grove, they're going to be near this museum. Everyone likes to be at the museum. And I hope that young people, more guys like Jason here, will consider maybe donating something and, you know, bringing people down to visit.
Check it out.
We're still wearing those uniforms.
Yeah, I could still fit mine. So.
Well, no, and we have, you know, we've had many organizations come through. We've had Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, Rolling Thunder.
We've had several grammar schools. We've had Toys for Tots. Many organizations that just they like what they like what we put on. And then we have these archival binders where I tell the stories of the veterans, many of them who are also exhibited in the museum. And I never forget the Rolling Thunder crew. They were there like 4 hours because every one of them grabbed the binder and they're taking pictures and they're telling each other, wow, check this out, you know. And I thought that was just so neat because it's in many cases the items that we're putting in these binders, the archival binders, are firsthand information. It's the pictures that the veteran might have carried. It's the flyers that the veteran might have picked up that the enemy was dropping. Surrender, and you know you'll get a hot meal and a hot babe. You know, it is all those pieces of information that all of us at one time or another carried around.
It sounds to me that you're rescuing not only particular objects, if you will, that you want to display, but you're also rescuing the history behind the person behind it.
Rick, it's interesting you said that. How many times
the individual.
People,
We want the individual stories. We
People
want
brought in shoe boxes
Mhm.
full of stuff, and one lady came in and said, "This is my grandfather's junk."
literally.
It wasn't junk because they have no clue what they have.
Right.
We tell everybody, made a point of saying, don't throw anything out.
Nothing.
Let us look at it first.
You know,
Yeah.
There's an opportunity because right now our VFW in Woodstock, they lost the location there. So there's a Marine Corps League and the VFW and the American Legion are collaborating on getting things so Woodstock has a veterans presence. But we also, Rick and I have been out and checked out some places that if we had a place, it doesn't have to be centered around a bar. But we were also talking about museum stuff. So at some point, we may be looking for stuff, but then we may come across stuff that you need. There's a collaboration here. And I don't know how you two guys met because it was like, the last 10 days, he says, "Hey, I got this Lorenzo. We got to go see him." I'm like, "Okay, Rick, here you go again."
No, and to me, it breaks my heart when I hear about posts, and it's a long story, but we don't own our building anymore either. But that's another story. But that would be another podcast. But the key is part of, I've told several posts, the way to hold on to your museum, don't focus so much on the bar. Okay.
Right.
Because if it's your building, you can always do BYOB. All right. But if you focus your building on a museum, cultural, art, and educational, those are all three good reasons why you will get a 501c3 for your veterans organization.
Right.
Okay. You turn your building into a museum. Now you don't have the property taxes to worry about. Then you turn around because the state of Illinois, just because you're a veterans organization, does not make you sales tax exempt in the state of Illinois.
Mhm.
Okay. Won't get into that either right now. But once you have your 501c3 letter from the IRS saying you're a bona fide cultural, educational, and art facility, then you turn around and you file your tax exemption, sales tax exemption by the state of Illinois. Now you pay no sales tax. That's how I won't get into that one, but that's how you don't pay sales tax, and that's how you don't pay property tax. So now, by the way taxes are going, right now, it's that much less money you got to make every year.
Utilities.
That's it. And
Now,
upkeep.
Yeah, the one place we were looking at, it would cost us $1,200 a year at this one building, and that's no bar or anything else. I said, one fundraiser with 3 organizations, you come up with 12 grand, you got everything covered, and then every VFW, American Legion, you do your own thing the other 11 months out of the year.
And that's the other huge thing that we started doing at our posts when we became the leadership there is we're stronger together than constantly pulling apart each other. So yes, get your 3 veterans organizations to work together. Every organization has to have their leadership because that's by charter what you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you have your one meeting each every month, but then you also have another meeting of the group,
Right.
To come up with the real decisions that got to be made.
Right.
So that's huge. I'm glad to hear you guys.
In our concept is that we're going to create this 501c3 when we get done with the bylaws, articles, and all that other stuff. But they're like, they are the ones that will own the building and take care of the maintenance and everything else. The other 3 organizations, they're just tenants in that organization, but those tenants are represented on the other board. That way you make businesses, because most of the veterans posts that lost their homes is because they didn't have any common sense when they were doing stuff. I got to get a discount at the bar, and I got to get a free dinner for a meeting. Well, that all costs money.
Not right. None of it is free to the person that's providing it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, going back to the bar too, I think with some of the older mentality with having that bar, like, it's like the forefront of like, oh, American Legion, VFW, blah, blah, blah. Like, I did the whole 2 combat tour thing, whatever, all that good stuff. And that, had issues with drinking and all that stuff. So, it's been a little over 12 years now, but guys like me, depending on how you look at it, either I could be younger or older, depending on who I'm talking
Right,
to.
yeah.
They don't want to be trauma bonding, especially infantry guys and stuff. And especially nowadays, it's like, surprisingly, a lot of the guys that I knew that I was with in the infantry, they're very successful. And I thought they were going to be like all over the place, like extremely bad. We all have our different struggles and all that stuff, and a lot of them do. But I was actually surprised to see that. But they're very solution orientated, and that's one of the things that kind of makes people like around my age iffy about joining some of these things, because you see a lot of the older generation sitting at the bar talking about their stuff, and that's fine, but you can't rely on that as a crutch your whole life not to do anything. I'm like, that was
especially society. You got to, of course, Jason. Our wives are trying to get him married off, and it's like, leave the boy alone.
Run, Jason.
But
there's a reason why I'm picky. Okay?
Right, I don't blame you.
But the thing is, their generation are just going through the family thing.
Right.
Most organizations, I don't see them until kids are grown and they're not working anymore. So now what do? You sit at a bar or you go to the VFW? Well, you go to a VFW, it's still a bar. But that's when when some people find a purpose in life. But the younger generation, they'll get involved if they have a purpose.
Right.
Exactly.
So
And that's what I tell my posts in the Legion, my posts in the VFW. What is your product? What are you trying to give people that you want to join your organization? What's your product? Okay, because if it's not a product that's going to sell, you need to scrap it and look for another product. Otherwise the organization's not going to be viable.
Well, you mentioned a while ago about the cultural side of it and everything else, and consistent with what you were talking about. Back in the 80s, I was being pushed to join a veterans group. Well, I went to a veterans group, and I went to the meeting. I saw the formalities and everything else, and I thought it was pretty cool. But afterwards, they all went up to the bar, and next thing you know, they're piling them back. And next thing you know, I'm looking at a bunch of old drunks talking about their BS crawling through the jungles, and I went, really? So they lost me at that point, because I didn't want to join a group, listen to a bunch of old guys telling a bunch of lies. I was very cynical. I was a police officer, so we just talked to each other that way.
Right.
And so, but anyhow, fast forward several years, I think it was 2014, I'm at a restaurant, and Marty Smith came over. He goes, "You mind if I join you?" I went, "Oh, who are you?" He goes, I noticed you had a Marine Corps sticker on your car out there, and blah, blah, blah. And before we were finished, he promised.
Was he watching you like get out of the car?
Right.
Like, how did he know that?
He was stalking me.
Right.
So, but anyhow.
No, he did that. He was pretty
There's laws against that kind of stuff.
Well, he actually had me promise him, and if I make a promise, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So I said, okay, I'll go to a Thursday meeting, and it was the Marine Corps League meeting, and I went in there, and I'm listening. It was formality. It was Gillespie was a commandant at the time, and I looked around and said, "This is definitely not the Marines that I knew." He had a ponytail, and all of this, and I said, "This is different." But I'm listening to the way these guys are interacting, and they're bulldozing each other, and they're joking here, and they captured me, and I realized that I'm not I'm trying not to swear. I'm not as dysfunctional as I thought I was. These guys are just like me. They talk my language. And instantaneously I knew I felt incredibly comfortable among a bunch of strangers. And I think that's the cultural side of it that you're talking about, is the product. The product itself, it doesn't have to be a bar. But the more under a current is the connection. And it's that cultural connection. It's more important than just about anything, and that's what makes it a success.
There's certain leagues that whenever I go to Florida, they got a Marine Corps league out over there at Cape Coral. They meet at a museum, and afterwards, they go to like pizza place or whatever.
Sure, I mean, nothing wrong with drinking, nothing wrong with smoking, nothing wrong with eating. But the great thing about it is, and we really are serious about this at our place. Like, when we think. Like Rich will call me every so often. He'll be like, I think so-and-so's upset with something that you might have said, or I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, what are you upset with me about? let me know, because if
Yeah.
I don't know what upsets you,
Mhm.
you know, how do I fix it?
Right.
You know, we
Yeah.
all make mistakes.
I call
I mean,
my
I
wife.
am
Yeah,
I am close to perfect, but I'm not.
yeah,
we all make mistakes.
Yeah, we don't.
Like,
We
you
don't
know,
want nobody-
because we've had several of our veterans that, you know, we unintentionally upset or insult, you know,
Yeah.
and then when you joke around and you BS, like, you know, we always say, yeah, you know, we'll pick on each other, and we can all pick on each other,
Mhm.
but you know, Joe Snuffy, you know,
Yeah,
street
civilian does that.
civilian sailor over there wannabe, right?
Yeah.
He better not pick on any one of us, because then we got an issue,
Right.
you know. But you know, we can be relatively brutal on each other and be able to walk away from a joke, you know, or
Right.
laughing, you
Well,
know.
you know, you
so
talked about
it's
a chronicle a
critical.
little while ago. What is the mission, if you will, of the Chicago Veterans Museum? What's the mission?
It's called actually Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum. So
Chicago
because-
Land Combined
Veterans,
Veterans
because there's actually
Museum.
a
Thank
group out there called Chicagoland Veterans. So ours is Chicagoland Combined Veterans. Now our YouTube,
Awesome.
our Facebook page is called Chicagoland Veterans Command Post, but we have a Facebook page called Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum and Library, and that's the museum is called that, Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum and Library. And there's a Facebook page, and our Facebook page for that, because we have a couple of them, that Facebook page is strictly museum history. That's what that's all about. Chicagoland Veterans Command Post. That's everything else have to do with both American Legion, VFW, military type of things.
So the bottom line mission of the museum is to keep our stories alive. It's to remind people, the general public, including each other, that, you know, others have sacrificed for us, you know, and we'll do that. We'll do that by recording the histories, by safeguarding any artifacts, by safeguarding anything that is important to us as a culture, and by making efforts to bring that information to the community. So the bottom line is, you know, we all say, lest we forget. We will not let people forget. And as long as we don't safeguard our histories, we don't safeguard our stories, you know, and I hate using the term stories, because hey, we all have stories. We all have stories, but then we all have stories. You know, I've had veterans say to me, oh, well, I didn't do anything in the military, you know, and then you come and find out they were a band member in a band at one of the presidential inaugurations. Well, that's a cool story.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You
You don't think of yourself sometimes, and then
Right.
when you hear somebody, you say, "Holy cow!"
Right.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Who gets to do that? Well, you know, for a while we had Opa Mae Johnson.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
you Marine
Oh,
Corps
wow.
guys know who that is. All right.
Mhm.
But this young man walks in the door. He had just ETS from the Marine Corps. He was the handler for the
Parris
mascot at Parris Island, so they let him keep the mascot.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
my goodness.
and her name was Opa Mae Johnson, the mascot. So we made, and he's just like, oh, you know, we're just a mascot handler. I didn't do
Yeah, we
much. So
took
it's
a
like,
full
dude,
advantage of that, man.
we're like, dude,
Are you kidding?
what do you mean you're just a mascot handler? You're the mascot handler for Parris Island.
That's amazing.
You know?
We had him when the young Marines visited. Man, he was there, and he would always help us with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
He would come
And
through.
so, unfortunately, not unfortunately, because he's happy,
Yeah.
and his wife is happy, because they've moved to Texas
Couple weeks ago.
for work, you know. But it was great having. But once again, he took the mindset of, you know, I didn't really do anything. And we're like, well, what did you do, like, on a regular basis? Well, I took care of the dog. You know, was there for the commandant or for the
Ceremony, boot camp,
sergeant major.
graduate, yeah.
You know, I was there for ceremonies. And it's like, and you sit there and you say you did nothing. I mean, you know, who doesn't love their mascot, right? I mean, the Army Mule. Yeah, I'll kiss the Army Mule's nose all day long if it brings me any luck, right? And it was so when you sit there and you say, oh, I did nothing, you know, I was the mascot handler, and you know, the mascot outranks the handler. Just so we're clear.
But he gave us some amazing photographs,
oh
which
my
will be in the
God.
museum.
Just
you know,
beautiful.
he's standing there with his.
Yeah.
He was like a lance corporal, and it's just amazing pictures.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he was at boot camp ceremonies, the graduations, the commandant,
Yeah.
the sergeant major. He did all these, but he thought,
But
I was just handling.
But
dogs.
there's a guy that, and I know there's a guy that walked into our post. Actually, it was his wife, that
yeah.
walked into our post because we had the big truck outside. I call it the Bat, big something truck. I'll let everybody guess on the middle part, so I don't get beeped. But we had the Bat outside. You know, we had all kinds of stuff going on. So she walked in. She had the canine with her that day.
That's right. She had the dog with her, yeah.
And we're like, oh, what a cute dog, you know. We didn't know it was Opa Mae Johnson, the canine, right? So she's there. She goes, oh, you know, I'm gonna try and get my husband to come. We're like, oh, great, you know. And we are so inviting, and that's what many posts tend to forget. You know, you want your post to grow, you have to invite everybody that walks in the door in.
And you know, and it's something, if you're the commander and you're in charge of the meeting, you have, you know, one of the nice things sitting at the board, you get to see everybody's eyes.
That's right.
And you can tell if they agree or disagree.
Right.
But at the same time, as we get somebody new, what do? They sit by themselves in the back.
That's right.
You pull them forward before the meeting starts.
You know, Mike,
I always try to sit up front when I was first got back in. So
Yeah, you want to hear what was said.
yeah,
We couldn't hear.
I couldn't hear, and that's how you retain information.
I had one guy say, I can't hear you. I'm like, dude, move up to the front. You know, I mean, it's great.
Well, you know, we put a kibosh on. So our on American Legion at VFW, when we first came over there, they were separate. You know, they had reasons why this organization, that put an end to that. So, but we still have some old timers who say, well, why don't you get the VFW? No, we do everything together. Right. We have to have the meetings separate, but we do everything together. Group. And we don't say you're VFW American Legion. We don't, you know, now if you go somewhere and we want your hat on, 90% of our guys are in both. If you join the VFW, you obviously could join the American Legion. It's only $40 a year. Now, someone might be saying, yeah, I don't want to join that. Well, you would not believe the wealth of information you get from your magazine. You don't have to come to the meetings. You don't have to come and help us out, but you get your magazine, you get your newsletter. We keep you up to date. If something happens to you, we go visit you in a hospital.
That's right.
We go, we see our guys in a hospital. We go. You know.
We have a copy of your DD-214, which last week I had 3 veterans families calling me saying, oh, my husband died, my dad died, my cousin died. You know, can I get my DD-214 from you? And I'm like, well, was he in my post? Because I don't have everybody's DD-214. I have my members' DD-214.
Yeah, see, we don't even hold ours anymore because of the confidentiality of.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Okay, too many of our veterans don't make sure. Because I was getting to that part. Yeah. Too many of our veterans don't make sure that their family member has a copy of that DD-214. Without that DD-214, you're going to get put in the ground with no benefit, with no services from the military.
See, IDVA gets copies of everybody getting out, and then you got the VACs. They can get those things.
I'm going to tell you a story about, because I don't make you cannot make this kind of stuff up.
Right.
Okay. Last week, 3 veterans. Okay. I contact the VFW. I love the VFW, love the Legion, love all the organizations out there. The whole VFW is in a conference in Maryland for a week. That does my guy no good. I called the IDVA. Great voicemail. Okay. If you need something immediately, call this number. It was the same number on the voicemail that I had just called.
That's crazy.
Did you catch that?
That's crazy.
Okay. The IDVA. Okay, so I'm not making this crap up, you know.
Well,
so the only place, and here's one of the things we've been thinking of doing is getting the funeral, director to come to our meetings. But once again, at our post, it's not really a problem. All 3 of these individuals were not from my post, but because I'm at district and here and there. I get a lot of these phone calls. Plus, I think everybody in the world's got my phone number, and I think it's now. And I think it's in a couple of. I think it's in a couple of bathrooms too. I think it's in a couple of bathrooms. Yeah, I think it's a couple of stalls too. But anyway, the key is, as we're thinking of having this funeral director come to see us and talk about maybe do a little presentation on how to plan for when you got to go. All right. Another idea that one of my lawyer friends said, well, hopefully they got a will, have them staple the DD-214 to their will. you know,
Right.
because I was successful in you know, I told one guy, I said, listen, if I got to create one, I will. All right. Because, you know, the dude's on the phone crying. You know, I'm like, so anyway, listen, if I got to create one, I'll create one. But we were able to get those benefits for him, you know, but one of them,
awesome.
one of them, there was nothing we could do, you
Right.
know.
Mhm.
So, but anyway.
Well, I got a question for you though.
Yes, sir.
And so that our viewers and listeners can figure out where to find this museum. Tell us how to do that. And also, if they wanted to donate or something along those lines to provide you with some financial assistance and so
You're
on.
by
for
Triton,
donations.
right?
Yes. So we are at 8664 Grand Avenue in River Grove, 8664 Grand. That's 60171. They can also, we do have the museum open for regular hours every third Sunday of the month. So every third Sunday, we're there from 10 to 3. Otherwise, you can either call my cell phone number, 708-606-0742. I won't give you Wojo's. Or you can email me. Email is probably best because I work shift work right now. So when I'm not actually working, I kind of like to get some sleep. So email is always best, and I will always reply to email. My email, and it's a long one, is my first name, LORENZO, middle initial A, last name F as in Frank, IORENTINO @yahoo.com. And also our card can be posted. We do have a Facebook page that you can also contact us through. I believe that's posted. We do have 2 Facebook pages, actually, one specific to the museum, Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum, and the other one is Chicagoland Combined Veterans.
The other one is Chicagoland Veterans Command Post, Chicagoland Combined Veterans Museum and Library.
Yep. So that's another great way to get a hold of us. But yeah, we love to get everybody in the door. We've had some great visitors come visit us.
Congressman Rivera,
yes,
federal
yes.
congressman.
We've had authors come visit us. Medal of Honor recipients come visit us. So we love to have visitors.
Well, whatever it is you're doing, you got the formula. The formula is making it happen. You're getting the community involved. You're getting VIPs coming to drop in on your museum and so on. I think that's success already.
Sure.
Success that defines it.
Yep.
So how do you do that, man? We're gonna have to really pick your brains and figure out that. But you have a lot of awesome stuff here that you provided us today.
Thank you.
Thanks
Wow,
for having
wow.
us too, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get the word out there. I
Great
appreciate it.
to have been here, gentlemen.
Oh, man.
Great to have
It's
been
great.
here. Thank you.
So you're getting into northwest suburbs now.
Yeah, it's beautiful up this way. I mean, my brother has a place in Fox Lake.
Okay. I
He's-
live in Antioch right next to it.
Yeah, so he's his place is from his home right on the Fox Lake there. His front view is the VFW post.
Huh.
Oh, I know where it is.
And he's not a veteran. It just worked out that way, you know. So whenever we go to his house, we're
Really
usually
good post too.
yeah, it's a really good post, very active.
Yeah.
And they're right on the lake, so they have a boat launch for their members. You know, that's kind of nice, and I believe you can pay a fee for non-members to
Right.
also use the boat launch. So just he's in a great location. Yeah, so
Gotta
it's
love
kind of neat. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Jason?
let's wrap it up there. Actually, really quickly, is Gene and Jude's close to the
It is. I'm glad I was gonna bring that up, and
greatest
I was like,
hot
I don't
dog
know.
place ever?
Yes, yes. It's literally you can walk there from our
Really?
place.
Yeah.
Outstanding. I remember Thirsty Whale used to be there, and
Yes.
then there was
Yep.
the stops. Yeah. Well, Franklin Park.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, when you come down there,
Sure.
look us up.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. So please, if you like what you hear, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit like, and the bell notification to get future videos on YouTube. And it helps out with the algorithm. And please pass the word to watch us on Spotify, Apple, Twitch, Twitter, 216thenet. And we want to thank our producers for this awesome podcast.
And our next podcast is a must-see. You got to be here for this. It's going to be on 5th of October, October 5. Matthias Carter He happens to be the commander of the VFW post out of Crystal Lake as well, veteran as well. He is going to provide us with information on a really awesome project through Rush Hospital Systems called the Road Home Project. And
Program.
yeah, well, he called it the project, the Road
Okay.
Home Project. That's what he
It's
called
actually known by the program.
it. Okay,
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, so
I was
Well, the Road Home Program, Road Home Project, take your pick. Depends on what education you went to. So anyway, having said that, yeah. But anyway, he's going to be talking about almost the same type of thing that the colonel was with
Patty
us, Patty Klopp, when she was here, about PTSD and how he went around their system and how it saved his life, basically. So and people that we know, like Ashton and so on, was involved in that. So anyway, I look forward to that. You got to be here. We'll see you on October the 5th, and thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.